Good morning, welcome back to Football League World TV. It's Monday, and that can mean it's only one thing it's time for: the Monday review show here on Football League World TV. I'm your host, George Dagless, and joining me, Billy Mulley. Billy, how you getting on?
Yeah, good morning, George. Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. A lot of action in the EFL this weekend. A lot of stories that have come from it as well.
Yeah, plenty to get our teeth stuck into. People at home, people wherever you're watching, do get in touch with across Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Do send in your comments. Let us know what you made of the action over the weekend, and if you were at any matches at all as well, let us know what you thought of what you were watching. Let's get straight into the Championship. And we'll start with Cardiff 0, Middlesbrough 2. A good result for Borough, but we have to start with Cardiff and what happened with them, and obviously Mccarthy losing his job. A serious run of losses. Finally, the axe has fallen on McCarthy. He takes Terry Connor with him as well, leaving the club. Billy, straight away, I guess, there's no real surprise that he's gone. And I guess the only question is, why did it take so long for Cardiff to let him go?
Yeah, it's true that he sort of had to go, and I think most people thought after the Swansea game that could have been the time that he got, but he was afforded a little bit more time. And yeah, as you say, they're 2-0 against Middlesbrough. Their 8th defeat in a row. 5 games now without scoring a goal, which is inexcusable, really, when you've got a player like Kiefer Moore in the ranks and a player that scored a lot of goals for Wales and for Cardiff last year as well. He was up there competing for the Golden Boot at one point. So to have these turn of events happen at a club that were competing for the competing for the playoffs, it's not great. And I think what we've seen is a team that are low in confidence and just slowly going down towards the relegation zone. And you could only sort of see one thing with McCarthy going, which is a surprise why it took so long to actually happen.
Yeah, sorry, but I was just going to say, I think Cardiff kind of, I guess for me, they thought maybe he's going to turn it around. Do you think what happened at the start of last season where he come in, that was still playing on their minds? I think, well, we could switch it around and get on a better run of form?
Yeah, certainly, because, as you say, it was a good turnaround at Cardiff last season, and McCarthy did really well come sort of start to 2021, and they were very close to actually securing a playoff place in the end. But I think also what McCarthy's done in this division before probably has some effect on the Cardiff hierarchy, why he was afforded so much time. But yeah, I think by the time you get into 5 or 6 games, in 5 or 6 losses, that's the sort of time you got to start asking those questions. And I don't know, because we're still so early into the season, I don't know if sort of those extra 2 games will cost Cardiff. I don't personally see them being near the relegation zone come the end of the season, but it depends who they bring in and what the immediate response is.
21st in the league table now, Cardiff. Billy, is there an immediate name that you could see going in there and you think, it's worth them getting a shot at Cardiff? Is there a certain style of manager you think they need to turn to? Obviously, they've had, similar style of managers like McCarthy, Neil Harris before that, Neil Warnock as well. Quite pragmatic manager, I think it's fair to say. Do you think now they might be tempted to go in a different style? But of course, it's a little bit of a risk to do that, particularly given their current sort of position in the Championship table.
Yeah, it's definitely a big question that those in the high positions at Cardiff will be asking themselves, whether they go for a similar sort of manager who has the experience of competing high up in this division, or do they go for a young and progressive manager who can perhaps advance them? And obviously it might take a while, like what we've seen with Russell Martin at Swansea. Do they go for a similar approach for that? But I think because there's still 34 games left this Championship season, if things don't immediately work out, I don't know how much of an effect that will have. But at the same time, they'll still need to be wary, because we've seen big teams in this division fall to the sort of bottom places in the Championship. So it's definitely big questions. I'd like to see a young and progressive manager. I think Michael Flynn as well. He's a name that the Championship might be a bit too steep for him, but he's definitely got that philosophy and sort of playing style that could work and could take the Championship quite well. I think what Ryan Lowe as well is doing at Plymouth, he's another good manager. I don't know if he'd be tempted because of what he's doing currently at the moment, competing at the top end with Plymouth and the project that he started there. I don't know if he'd be tempted by that, but Cardiff are a big club in the division and do offer a lot of desirable things that a manager would be looking for. But yeah, I think Chris Wilder as well was a very good shout, going for the sort of more experienced option. I think he's favourite at the moment, and you can see why. What he done with Sheffield United a couple of seasons ago is brilliant, really, and there's no reason why he can't take that Cardiff squad and do something similar.
As for Middlesbrough, up to 6th on the back of that win, another 2-0 win for Borough. That seems to be, if they're going to win, they win 2-0. A few weeks ago, Billy, Neil Warnock was attracting a little bit of criticism from certain sections of the support. He's gone some way, hasn't he, to silencing them. They're in the top 6, and the aim really for Borough this year was to be competing for the playoffs, wasn't it?
Yeah, Neil Warnock has done what he's done quite a lot in his career and turned things around and sort of earned the respect. Although he probably doesn't need to earn the respect because of what he's done in this division in the past, but certainly 4 wins in the last 5 games is something quite special after the disappointment they had at the start of the season. I think they've had quite a favourable run of fixtures, and that's only going to get tougher. But taking that record of picking up 12 points from possible 15 will only stand them in good stead to take on the tough games that they've got coming up. The thing is that they're in 6th at the moment, but similar to my club Luton, that there's 1 point between them and 11th. So 2 losses could really change the complexion. They could find themselves back in sort of that 16th, 17th region. So at the moment, I don't think this sort of scrutiny on his name is passed, but he's definitely doing all the right things to perhaps get himself back into sort of the good books at Borough.
Certainly is. Borough looking pretty decent at the moment, sitting 6th in the Championship table. We're just going to take a quick look at matters right at the top of the Championship table. I had a comment in from Glenn Watkin at the Sky Blue Hub. Disappointed that Coventry's winning run has ended. Poor officials denying Coventry a second goal from Matt Godden when it wasn't offside. They're blatantly not given a foul on Jokeres as well. Derby, sorry, didn't put their chance of obviously getting a draw. And Billy, obviously, I want to talk about the state of play at the top of the table. You look at the league table now. Bournemouth, Fulham, West Brom all got impressive wins. 3-0 wins for Bournemouth and West Brom, and a 4-0 win for Fulham yesterday and Nottingham Forest. You look at it now, and you look at that draw that Coventry had. Obviously, Coventry as well, not 1 in 3 now. There's a little bit of a gap opening, isn't there, between those top 2 sides that many expect to be at the top of the table, and then those below. Do you think anyone, looking at the table just below that top 3, anyone should be able to break into that little pack turns into the top 2, or is it going to be, those 3 battling those automatic spots?
First of all, George, I think the mic's playing up a little bit again. It's making that sort of rustling sound. But just going back to the sort of those 3 teams, Bournemouth, Fulham, West Brom, they do seem a class above the rest of the division at the moment. I think Fulham and West Brom have shown little inconsistencies, but at the same time, I think that they've got sort of the squad, they've got the firepower, they've got the defensive resilience really to really keep where they are at the moment. I don't see too many sides. I think Coventry and Stoke have been two very strong outfits so far this season, but I think their away records letting them down. I think what we've seen with Luton and Blackpool, they're 2 teams that perhaps got the most confidence at the moment from that chasing pack, but I'm not entirely sure if that can be sustained. But I think I look at those 3 teams with the squad they've got, with sort of the way that they've all turned a corner. Fulham a couple of weeks ago, West Brom perhaps yesterday was that turning point. And as long as they can sort of gain some sort of consistency, then I can't really see anyone disrupting that top 3. It's gone on mute now, George.
Technical issues on a Monday morning. That's just how you want to start your week. Get rid of these earphones. They're only cheap anyway, so they're not going to last that long. But no, it's really, really interesting up at the top of the Championship table. It does look like Bournemouth West Brom and Fulham, as we may have expected at the start of the year, threatening to break away, although it's still, only a 4-point gap that Coventry need to make up. So they'll surely fancy themselves to get back to winning ways as soon as possible. Up next, we're going to talk Peterborough's win over QPR. A late win for the Posh, 2 on the spin now as well for them in the Championship. They're starting to look a little bit more, up the table, aren't they, Billy?
Yeah, I think it's been a very good week for Peterborough. Obviously, 2-1 win against Hull, and they followed that up against the team who I've spoken a lot about being a very, very good Championship side this season in QPR. And I think what we're seeing with Peterborough now is things perhaps starting to click. I think they recruited well in the summer, but it hadn't really sort of come together yet. I think George Grant coming in is a brilliant sign, and he played a real big part in their victory against Hull the other day. And I think sort of Harrison Burrows coming through the ranks as well and emerging as a Championship player is another thing that's perhaps unexpected, but something that we've seen that has sort of helped them in that respect. I think that Dembele is also looking like a player that can compete at sort of the top end of the Championship with his performances so far, and that I think is all coming together to create a good atmosphere at Peterborough, at the moment, and long may that continue, because I think what they've done in League One sort of deserves a chance in the Championship, and hopefully that can continue and their winning run can sort of go long into the rest of October and into early November.
As for QPR, dropped out of the playoff places on the back of that defeat. Should their defensive record be a little bit of a concern, Billy? You look at the goals against column. Only 3 teams in the league conceded more than QPR. We know they like that expansive style under Mark Warburton. He obviously brought in the sort of 3 at the back with the wing backs in midway through last year, and it really helped them tighten up and get up the table. But it almost looks to me like potentially he needs to tweak the system again at the moment. They've conceded 22 goals so far this year, and they're still in the playoff mix, obviously, but you feel like eventually that's going to come home to roost and they'll drop away.
Yeah, as you said, the expansive style of football has its benefits, it has its drawbacks, and I think at the moment we're in a bit of a position where we're seeing those drawbacks outweigh those benefits. I think what we've spoken about a lot is how good Rob Dickie has been, how good Johan Barbe has been, but you sort of put that into the question where they've conceded the 4th most in the division. It just makes it seem very, very weird, and I don't quite see how that's happened. But looking at the goals they did concede against Peterborough, they were avoidable goals. I think goals that QPR haven't been conceded from in sort of recent years. But I think, as we said before, that expensive style of football is going to have those sorts of effects. It's obviously going to boost them in attacking positions, sort of the amount of players they do get into attacking positions. But at the same time, it's going to sort of leave strains on the defence. And I think that's what we're seeing. And that was sort of their undoing against Peterborough. I think what we're seeing as well is their fullbacks are 2 very attacking players. No matter what combination they play, they even had Willock as left wing back the other day, which just shows the sort of attack-minded nature that Warburton expects from his fullbacks. And I think perhaps looking at tweaking the system might be an idea. I still think that the way they do operate will see a lot of success this year, but I think knowing their opposition and perhaps tweaking certain aspects of their game could be sort of the difference of them competing in the playoff positions and perhaps competing outside.
Okay, we will see if they can tighten up in the weeks ahead. One team that benefited from QPR's loss of the weekend was your team, Billy, Luton Town, getting a narrow win over Hull City. It's now sit 5th in the Championship table. I don't want you to jinx your own team, but is it time we consider them as playoff contenders this year?
I'm a pessimistic fan when it comes to Luton, but I think even I have to say that we have to be classed as contenders given where we are and what we've done this season. I think it's only West Brom and Bournemouth that have lost fewer games than us this season. been proven very difficult to beat. I think that's one defeat in the last 10, and that came against league leaders Bournemouth. So in terms of how we're playing and how we're stopping teams from beating us, that's all there. Certain games we've looked frightening this season. Coventry, I think Millwall as well was another very, very good performance. But I think beating Hull was as sort of difficult as it is to say, because it wasn't the best performance. It's one of those performances that you expect from teams that go on to do well in the division. Obviously not at our best, but we grinded out a victory, limited Hull to not very many chances at all. And it's having those sort of mix of performances and results that usually constitute with a team doing well and going on to get into the playoff positions. I'm still thinking that we rode our luck a little bit against Derby, and if Hull had a bit more cutting edge and a little bit more quality and forward positions, I don't know if we would have held on to all 3 points, but the signs are definitely positive at Luton at the moment.
Yeah, it's certainly exciting time to be a Hatters fan as well. You know, with Nathan Jones, that experience, he's got a winning promotion with Luton in years gone by. You never know, we might see him in the Premier League next season, which would certainly be an exciting thing for Luton fans. One more Championship game to talk about from the weekend, and that's Blackpool's win over Preston. It's a 2-0 win for the Tangerines in their eagerly anticipated derby against Preston at Bloomfield Road. Neil Critchley has got his men up into the top half of the table. They're looking very much at home now, Billy, aren't they, in the Championship, Blackpool?
Yeah, I think what we found out, a lot of people have been saying it was an underrated derby, and usually in derby games you see sort of both teams quite cagey, mistakes creep in, but Blackpool, for a team that are quite inexperienced at Championship level, they looked very much at home, and to be on the same points as a teams operating in the playoffs it's an excellent start to the season for Neil Critchley's side. And they're a side that I think haven't actually reached their limit yet. I think that they can continue just performing well and sort of blowing teams away by being the new boys in the Championship, but actually having a lot about them. And I think in this instance, Preston, as they haven't really got going yet this season, but they have been sort of tough to beat. But I didn't really see that in Preston this week. And that's the game against a rival, a game that hasn't happened in quite a few years, that you want to be resolute at the back and put in a performance where you're tough to beat. And unfortunately for Preston, on Saturday, that wasn't the game.
It certainly was a tough result for Preston to take. That leaves them in 19th in the Championship table, Blackpool in 11th, one of several teams on 21 points vying for the playoffs at the moment in the second tier. Let's drop into League One. And we're going to go to Charlton's win at Sunderland at the Stadium of Light. Billy, obviously it was the first game Charlton had without Nigel Adkins in the dugout, and perhaps conveniently they got a very big result at the Stadium of Light against the Sunderland side that's obviously going really well so far this year in League One. What do you make of the performance? What do you make of the fact that, you know, Charlton have been really poor so far this year, and if Adkins had been in charge, it's very likely Sunderland would have won that game, but he's not there, obviously. Johnny Jackson was in charge, assisted by Jason Yule, and they picked themselves up pretty quickly and got a very impressive result.
Yeah, exactly that. It seems that the sacking of a manager curse is happened again, because we've seen it quite a lot in recent seasons, even early on in this campaign, that when a new manager steps in and the one departs, then the team goes on to record a strange result, and that's exactly what's happened here. Sunderland have been terrific at home. Not too many teams will restrict Sunderland to the amount of shots and opportunities they had. It was not the best performance from a Sunderland perspective. Had a couple of clear-cut opportunities, but apart from that, Charlton really restricted them, and I think that's what they're going to have to try and do against teams in sort of the top positions in the division. Obviously try more expansive football against teams that are in and around them and at the Valley as well. But yeah, I think what we've seen was a very strong performance from a side that really haven't had much confidence this season. And I think what we also saw was Sunderland perhaps underestimating the task ahead. I think with Johnny Jackson in charge, it's sort of helped Charlton fans get back to a state of excitement around their football club. And that's where I think Sunderland got undone. As I said before, the Stadium Light has been a very difficult place to come to this year. And I think Charlton nullified that excellently well with a strong defensive performance. And when they were counter-attacking, Jonathan Lecco looked brilliant on the right wing. Still don't know how he's playing in League One because he's such an excellent player. But he is, and he was the one that set the goal up in the end.
Yeah, no, the Charlton certainly looking very good. Obviously, early days in the Johnny Jackson caretaker reign, but Thomas Sandgaard, the Charlton owner, he has said that he's willing to give Jackson time. So he's got this sort of opportunity to potentially make himself the permanent manager there. And obviously, he will be assisted again by Jason Newell. Games against Doncaster coming up, and then Rotherham United after that. The game against Doncaster is a real opportunity for Charlton to get another win, isn't it? Build a bit of momentum. What do you think Jackson needs to do, Billy, in the coming games to try and get himself this permanent manager's job? It's quite clear that he would take it. I think that's fair to say. But what does he need to do to ensure that he does get it?
I think there's two ways that you can go about this. It's either getting the points on the board to justify his appointment, or it's to sort of implement a style of football that fans and the board can see can be sustained and can actually reap the rewards this year. I think Jackson would be a terrific appointment. How well he knows the club, he's just his footballing pedigree as well. I think there's a lot pointing towards him becoming a permanent manager and succeeding at Charlton. But at the same time, it could all go wrong. This game against Sunderland could be a one-off case, and it could sort of go pear-shaped from here. It's the beauty of football, really. You just don't know what can happen from this point. I think not many people would have suspected that Charlton would have bounced back against Sunderland. I think it probably ruined a lot of people's accumulators at the weekend. But at the same time, it's the beauty of football. And I think what we're seeing is a Charlton side that could be revitalised and could actually go on to enjoy a good season.
Yeah, they'll certainly be hoping that they can pick up from here on in. That result leaves Sunderland in fourth in the and Charlton are now sitting in 22nd. Still not looking great for them in the League One table, of course, but they will feel a great deal better than they did this time last week. One final game to talk about, and that's the League. And we're going to give special mention to Scunthorpe United, who have got their first win on the board since the end of August in League Two, a 2-1 win over my local team, Crawley Town, unfortunately. For people around my way. Billy, it's a much needed result for Scunthorpe, isn't it? What would you make of the result? And can they suddenly, surmount a little bit of a challenge and get themselves out of trouble? You look at the result; it's already helping close the gap down at the bottom. It's just all about building on this, isn't it?
Yeah, I think what we spoke about Scunthorpe this season is all been very negative, and I think for that reason, I thought they were actually a lot further away from sort of survival places than they actually are. It's just a point now, which is an excellent boost and something to really build on. Played a Crawley side that I know they came into the game with 2 losses, but that was at the hands of Exeter and Sutton, 2 very strong outfits at the moment. So in terms of form, I don't think Crawley have been too bad coming into the game, but Scunthorpe would sort of smelt danger there and sort of reacted upon that very well and done very well to get the 3 points. I think what Ben Wignall has said on the show quite a lot this year is that Scunthorpe didn't have a very good recruitment basically in summer. Brought a lot of players that perhaps should be operating in the division below, but they're coming together, and I don't know if that sort of the start of something new here, and whether January is another sort of good point for them to build upon and start sort of a survival push and perhaps bridge that gap and go on to have a really good season.
Yep, it's certainly looking a little bit rosy at Glanford Park. Still plenty of work to do, of course, and it's still a tough road that lies ahead. There's still lots want to improve upon, but just that 1 point now from safety with Mansfield losing their level on points in 23rd now. Carlisle 12 points in 22nd, Scunthorpe sitting in 24th on 11 points. As for Crawley, that's their third loss in a row. They're currently sitting in 16th in League Two. Just shows you how tight it is. They were on the periphery of the playoffs not too long ago in the fourth tier. Billy, thank you very much for joining me this Monday morning. Thanks for helping me out with the earphone issue we had earlier on as well. I'm glad we got that just about out of the way. People at home, thanks for sticking along with us as well throughout the duration of the show. Hopefully you've enjoyed what we've had to say on Football League World TV. Coming up later this afternoon, we've got two debate shows, one looking at Slavica Jukanovic and can Sheffield United to get promotion this season. Alfie Burns will be hosting that one. He's joined by Ben Wignall. And then later on, looking in depth at Cardiff City, who should replace Mccarthy at the Bluebirds. Sam Rourke is hosting that one. He's joined by Marcus Ali and Chris Gallagher. So do stick around for that one. But from myself and Billy, it's bye from us.